Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's exciting to be back. Um, this is Business Talk, and it's just a wonderful feeling to have my brother, Keno Al Phillips, here with me this morning. As you all are aware, there was a situation with him and his family with the loss of his wife, his beloved wife, but the man is back. The man has gone through the different processes and we really welcome him back. We are excited to have him. We're excited to have the show. And, he can share some of the experiences because even when things are negative, we still have the opportunity to learn from them. So this is Business Talk, back better, more committed, stronger than ever. But we're excited to have Aquino back. And Aquino, let the people hear your voice, that voice that a lot of people love to hear. Let them hear it.
Well, thank you, Alva. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be back on the show, to host this show that transcended borders and brought a lot of change and brought a lot of good discussions about business in our country, bridging the diaspora on this side of the world to Liberia. And it's great to be back. It's we're just about a little over 2 weeks from a year that my wife passed away, Deletta Phillips. She used to actually pick up my clothes to wear for the show, my shirts, and Daddy wear this, don't wear that. So I had to kind of, reflect on what she would
I see
recommend.
why
So
you used to be
I
looking all
changed.
dressed nicely. Now I understand.
It was definitely not my pick, certainly. But it's great to be back. It's great to be back. And thank you so much to all of those who were the well wishers and those who were sympathizers and those. Thank you for all the prayers for me and children, the family, and all of those who came to the celebration of life and all of those who came by to visit even after the event and all of those who have helped, me and the children, me and the family to go through this process and this realignment, latter days, right? After this, life never becomes the same. It's a whole new walk. It's a whole new way of thinking. It's a whole new way of seeing things, understanding things, and but trying to realign myself and connect to those things that would bring me joy and that I enjoy doing and kind of rebirth the whole process. So I'm glad to be back, happy to be back, reconnect to you and the audience out there on both on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, all across the US, all across Liberia. Let's get back into business talk and let's talk business. Let's talk business. Let's talk economic transformation, economic empowerment, development across Liberia, bridging the diaspora in the US, Europe, Canada, back to Liberia. And what can we do? How can we do it? And how can we succeed at doing it? Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. And folks, you all know that the third piece of this puzzle is the Rufus Divine Connect. Um, it's usually here, but I think he's in the studio occupied with something at the moment, and he can't, join the show right now. But hopefully he'll be joining us shortly. And we are just excited to be here. We couldn't hold you up, the audience who want to participate in this effort. So we are here. So Akina, if somebody were to say, give us a summary what you guys did before, what were some of the areas you touched on and stuff like that. Let's kind of rehash some of those topics just briefly to just set a taste for people to see where we were before and where we want to go now.
Well, I mean, we started off this show. We started off this show talking about business, right? Talking about business, keeping politics out of business, and focusing on using, developing, creating a show that in using the various technologies from StreamYard to Facebook to the power of the internet and relaying through the local FM station in Liberia, and then connecting to other FM stations across Liberia. Like for instance, today we're broadcasting live. We're relaying this show all the way in Bong County on another FM station there, Radio Lila. So we're using the power of the internet to relay the station by way of Facebook all the way into Radio Lila in Banga, and we're also relaying live into Radio Kakata there. And
Right.
so that's doing a great thing. But the focus of the show was to help local Liberian businesses to provide a means of teaching, educating, enlightening the local folks, be it small, medium, large businesses, talk about how the diaspora in the US can bridge that gap, providing some support and education with regard to business principles. We've started off giving 10 principles about business, how to form, how to create your plan, how to be energized about your plan, your strategy, your mission statement, your goals, your objectives. All of those things were all part of it. So, and as we continue to broadcast, we started then bringing in different guests in specific areas of the economy. Some people came from the agriculture sector, talk about poultry, how to develop the poultry industry segment of the market, and talked about cassava. We talked about how the cassava business can be something that will stimulate growth, create jobs. And we talked about the fact that the agriculture sector of Liberia is the largest sector of the country that creates the most number of jobs. We talked about energy, electricity, what role electricity plays in stimulating growth and development and transformation within the country. We talked about the telecommunication sector, how important the internet, mobile broadband, 4G, mobile data, all of those means of connectivity. We talked about mobile money. We talked about, touched on the rubber sector as well, which is part of the agriculture sector. I think we also did some shows on mining. But again, the key thing about this show is to look at all aspects of Liberia, of the Liberian economy as it relates to the private sector, and then most importantly, that bridge between the private sector and government. How government can play a role, what government's doing to create the conditions to stimulate growth, to create the enabling environment for these new ideas and concepts to thrive. And so it became a stimulating show, and then we created a WhatsApp group and added more people in there. It's still a very active group, and hoping, and now this new chapter of the show, we're hoping to do bigger things, better things, and invite more guests, and have deeper, wider, and higher discussions about how the show can be used as an instrument, as a device, as something that will stimulate, um, you know, those in leadership positions in the government to realign or rethink how they're doing things and how their policies, their actions have a direct or indirect effect on the private sector to create jobs and provide opportunities. So that's
Right.
where we find ourselves today.
Right. So yeah, Akina is right. We've basically been telling Liberians how to build their businesses, how to try to be successful, and all of that. But if we look at the structural aspect of it, what if the system that we are telling Liberians to operate in, to build their businesses in, to grow in, what if the system is designed in a way that limits that success or makes it so much harder for Liberians to be successful, right? So, what if we focus on the entire business ecosystem, which means that we have
Mhm.
to educate people about all those other aspects in the political economy that affects people as business people. Um, so let's try to see how we can help ordinary Liberians understand why the structure itself could be a problem, and what the changes will require from them. Um, we're not just advising people anymore now. We're trying to build some business and economic literacy, and it also streams over to the whole civic posture of how we can be a better country, how our concession can work for us, how our natural resources can work for us. What are the downstream activities that we'll be looking at? So now instead of just how to succeed in Liberia's economy, it's about how to understand, how to challenge, how to change, how to rebuild our economy. We have put out some of these different things like Liberianization. We went through previously was like 26 sectors, and then eventually it shifted to 19. And then out of that 19, they did reduce some of them and made it, very challenging for the typical Liberian, to just own the business. We have people fronting. We still have people fronting, right? So now this time we want to look at the conceptual architecture of this whole business environment, this whole business ecosystem. So there's some bad habits, some information, some wisdom that we received that don't apply. Then there are things we need to relearn in a different way. Look at some things that we learned before and say, oh, but we got to shift our learning towards this direction. Then there's some new things we got to learn, right? So we start first with those things that we really need to unlearn, right? So, for example, they said, foreign investment is good, inherently good. Sometimes they didn't care about the structure of the foreign investment. Oh, just bring foreign investment, good, right? Then the whole thing about free market, let the market just operate by itself. Limited regulation, it just operate. That means development will come because the players in the market, they make some assumptions about them that may not be true. Some of them are based on the European economy when they make assumptions about those people participating in the free market. Then we got all these institutional programs, right? The IMF, the World Bank, and all of those things. And there are conditionalities. They got some restrictions. And supposedly when you comply with those things, then you can gain economic health. They make their projections, they do this, they do that. Ultimately, we have seen many of those things have not worked, right? So then there's the other perception about why Liberia is poor. We got significant resources, but we poor. Somebody is, oh, Liberians don't work hard enough. Liberians don't save. Liberians don't work together. So all of those constructs that are working against us as Liberians, even the current concession model, how is it working? Those are things we got to unlearn, right? We got to learn things in a different way. We got to now have a framing of what we mean. So when we look at something like comparative advantage, right? What does it really mean for Liberia? What can we manufacture? What can we industrialize in our country that can really impact us, impact our economy, lift us out of this resource trap, right? Where we just started, we're just doing extraction. So how can we extend our local content, our participation in all these concessions where enforcement is visible? We got to learn that. How can we control some of these things? What is the government role? What has been the government role and how does that change, right? And then at the structural level, not just at the business level, but at the whole structure of the economy, what is it? What does it mean to say Liberianization? How do we effect Liberianization? How we do make it a positive economic impact? So those are some of the things we have to relearn. Then some of the new stuff is understanding stuff we never tried to understand before. What's in a concession agreement? How can we educate the common man who's in Nimba, where he see them extracting iron ore all the time, or the people in the Burma area, or the people in Cape Town where the gold is coming from? How can we inform them? What's in their concession? What are they entitled to? What is Liberia giving away and what are we getting? Okay, so we look at those things. We look at the conditionalities, how they affect the wage bill, how they limit that, how they affect healthcare spending, How do they limit us industrializing our space? What kind of policies we need to really industrialize? So those are some of the kind of things that we need to look at. All right. And then we look at value addition. How do we add value? Especially within the agriculture sector, and the fact that we have limited resources, funding is not there. Then we got something like called the African Continental Free Trade Area. How do we as Liberians impact that? How do we, even in our small Mano River Union, how do we get our products out there as opposed to just receiving products from Guinea and from Ivory Coast and sometimes Sierra Leone? How do we trade effectively? So those are the kind of things that we look at. Then we look at the actual infrastructure, right? Telecommunications, energy, water. How do those things impact the business community and impact how Liberians can participate in business in the country? So these are all things that we need to, really look at on this show and participate in. And I'm waiting for Akino to come back. It seems like his imaging is giving him a little problem, but we're trying to look at the show in those dimensions and be able to add some, some flavor, whether it is the man is back. So basically, I'll just elaborating on some of the new things we look at, how we can unlearn some old concepts that we had that may not be relevant for us today, how we can relearn some of the things we learned, as well as how we can add new learnings and new information to what we want to do in the business sector to improve Liberian empowerment, to improve our percentage of local content, to improve Liberianization. So those are the kind of things that, we are thinking about looking at today in this business talk that we're moving into.
No, I think your points are well taken, Abba. I think, when you send the points over last night for us to, think about and bring onto the show today, talking about what all we have done before and then, looking forward, moving forward, and how to peel this onion, if I can put it that way, layer by layer to go deeper into the essence of where the challenges lie for our economic growth and economic transformation and economic empowerment at all levels of our economy, not really just the top, but mainly at the bottom. When I look at business, I always tell people, look at business, look at an economy from the perspective of it being like a triangle, and the largest area of any triangle is at the base. So if you look at the Liberian economy from the perspective of it being a triangle, you will see that the largest area of that triangle is at the base of the triangle. So how do we, when you talked about the concession agreements that were written at the time they were written, have they been altered? Have things been modified? Have they been modified, or have they been, adjusted to the nation's advantage, considering what infrastructure we have to bring to the table to stimulate additional growth as a result of these concession agreements for exploiting, not in a negative way, but exploiting our natural resources. Have we done those modifications, those alterations within the concession agreements? And those concession agreements transcends not only natural resources under the ground, right, but also agricultural resources like the rubber sector, the cocoa and coffee sector, other agricultural produce like pineapples and things like that. Have we looked at those things? Now, you look at, from the perspective of now you see a lot of things happening now. A lot of African countries are looking to not just the extraction of the natural resources or raw materials, but also doing value addition, refining, in country. So as it relates to Liberia now, you look at this triangle, which is our economy. The largest area of the triangle is at the base, and the higher you go in the triangle, the area gets smaller. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, how do we grow? How do we grow? How do we expand? How do we create economic prosperity at all levels of that economy, mainly at the base? Because for any government, your focus, your agenda, your purpose, your drive, your motivation, and that we should empower you is to reduce the burden of government and expand the private sector so that you create more jobs and increase your tax base so that you can have a windfall or a dividend as a result of those investment policies, ideas, and structure. But then you ask yourself, okay, so let's look at the rubber sector, which is a very important sector, a very important segment of the agricultural sector. There are more rubber growers, small, medium, and large rubber growers across the entire length and breadth of Liberia. But then how do they add value? Okay, so we look at the rubber growers, but then we look at the rubber processing companies in Liberia to do the value add, to do the value addition, because you may create jobs on the planting side, but then are those high wage jobs? Because the higher wage jobs are basically where? In the value addition sector. That's where you need the technicians, that's where you need the engineers, you need the finance people, you need your ports for exporting, you need all of those is on the value addition side. Okay. But then you ask yourself, do we have the infrastructure? Has government done its part to make the proper investments in the infrastructure, the telecommunications infrastructure? Okay, the energy sector. I mean, that's my number one thing. Have we done the proper investment in the energy sector so that it is more decentralized across all aspects and all areas and all geographical areas of the country, all the political subdivisions, so that investors don't concentrate their investments only in that one area where energy is? Okay, now you talk and you see, okay, so these concession agreements, the modifications, the alterations, and whatever changes can be done there is the right infrastructure to support also the small and medium and petty Liberian businesses. I mean, you may have tappers in the area. So again, like you said, you use the word, like you put the word on the chat last night, and you brought the word up today. The ecosystem is our leadership, is our government, are the legislatures, and those who have been appointed into different areas of government. Are they thinking from an ecosystem perspective? Because if you're not thinking from an ecosystem perspective, where you understand that turning this also affects all of these things, then you would just keep turning the knob, looking over here, not knowing there are a whole bunch of other changes and things taking place on the left-hand side. You see, when we were growing up, we were in high school, there was a very, very important mathematical concept that we were taught. It's called simultaneous equation. So we need to understand that when you're doing simultaneous equation, what you do over here also affects what happens on the bottom side. So it's an ecosystem approach, an ecosystem way of thinking, an ecosystem way of understanding, because this is not 1965, the year I was born. This is not 1970. This is not the 1980. This is not the 1990. No, we're in a whole new paradigm where things are so interconnected and interwoven that we have to think that way. The old way of thinking, those old concession agreements, they're not applicable today. They're certainly not applicable today. And if we keep trying to put, the wrong fuel in the vehicle, we're not ultimately going to get to where we're going. So your point is well taken. Very, very well point. Very, very important.
Right. So just for us to break down ecosystem quickly, just so people can understand, typically it's a geographic area, right? And if we look at it from that perspective, we're looking at Liberia business sector as a geographic area, right? Imaginary geographic area. And it has so many different things. It has living organisms, it has the physical environment, like he just talked about the infrastructure, and then it has the different interrelationships between each thing that can impact each other. So that's why it's so significant for the ecosystem to work together to be able to build itself. Otherwise, it tends to destroy itself. So,
That's
we
exactly
need to
right.
be able to build that ecosystem, understand the different parts that exist, understand how important the most common person in Liberia is to the development of the nation. And they need to understand to all the different levels and layers and all the people who are involved so that they can, be able to impact it positively. So that's why when we look at this topic, say, why is Liberia poor, right? What's the real answer? And you
Exactly
know,
right.
people give different reasons, whether it could be corruption, whether it's mismanagement, whether it's
Hmm.
this,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then we look at the numbers, right? We know we got some of the largest iron ore reserves in West Africa. We know our forests in West Africa is the largest tropical forest right now. We
Hmm.
know that we got other minerals, gold, diamond, and most recently, if you believe what people are saying, critical elements have been found in Liberia, and some of them are supposedly in how should I say, commercial quantities, right? So the potential for
Hmm.
like is huge. Then people say there's no reason for us to be poor. But the reality is what? Most Liberians are living on less than $2 a day, right? So on average, what that is saying is most Liberians don't get 60 US dollars a month to live,
Hmm.
less than that. And that's horrible, folks. I don't care how I won't say whether they hard time, they this, they that. We can't let that happen. We can't have so much, wealth in the ground, in the water, in the forest, but the people are poor. So that's what this show is reaching to. How do we transform from that concept of wealth, right, into applying that wealth so that the people who are there can benefit? Other countries have targeted one thing. Other countries have targeted only services. Other people have targeted, we got cocoa, we got peanuts, that what we focus on. Oh, Botswana, we got diamonds, that what we focus on. People like the DRC, they got a lot of different minerals as well. But we are a small country, 5.4, maybe up to 6 million. We don't know the exact number because the Wahala behind the census, right? But we need to sit down together as Liberians and figure out how we can get this thing to work, how we can move from this quote unquote enclave economy. And that's what, for people to understand, sometimes you got to give a decent example of what you look at as an enclave economy. So let's say, for example, we look at what we do in okay, let me give you an example. Let's say there's a pipe in Nima, right? Um, this pipe that in Nima is sucking out all the iron ore. But the pipe, it doesn't drop anything along the way. Everything straight into the port, right? It gets on a ship, they ship it out of the country. The iron ore goes to China, it goes to the United States, wherever, right? And they process it there. The most likely, the main product they tend to is steel. Then when they send that stuff back to us, the money they pay for it, let's say they pay 5 cents for it to go. When it come out of, we're paying $100, right? At the same time, jobs related to processing that stuff, the factory's infrastructure, the tax revenue from the processing, all of it is not happening in our country. So that's why we're enclave. If we try again, because it's good for us to, help define these terms so people can understand like the core meaning of it before you go to the economic meaning of it, right? So An enclave is basically something that just enclosed within its boundaries.
It's enclosed. It's enclosed. Yes, yes, yes.
It's limited. We're not expanding. We're not going out there. We're not integrating. We just focus just on that extraction, and that limits us a big time. So we now have to start thinking, how do we stop renting our resources, and how do we start developing them? How do we bring value addition? Um, but before we go further, it makes sense for us. I know Akinon did it earlier, but we have a partner that's really will be a significant part of this show on Radio Lila, FM 92.1 in Banga City, Bon County. And I just always let to tell the Pele people, I'm a Pele man, but the Pele people don't like me. They don't want me to be a part of Pele land. So, Emmanuel, if you're there, I'm a Pele man from by the patriarchal side, from my father's side. I need to connect with my Pele people from the Toronto area. Tukpa, Tukpa, that's my name. So if you find any Tukpa over there, maybe I'm a relative because we're not plenty, but we need to connect. But yes, we appreciate the fact that Radio Lila is relaying our show in Bangabon County, and we know that's a highly populated area as well. So we'll get the information out there. And we also need to engage the business community in Bon County. We need to understand
In Bon County as well. Yes.
what
Yes.
we'll probably try to get to every county to understand what is the economy of that county. How can it be
Okay.
impacted better by government, by other people in the
Yeah.
private sector? What
All of
potential
it.
investments
Yeah.
that could be attractive to people? Talking to a friend, I don't know if you one of my friends, talking about waterfall that over there, not the Siga waterfall because that has become popular now.
By the way,
There's another waterfall mostly not too far from Toronto that he was talking about. I will try to get the information right, and we're supposed to send some people out there to see if we can capture some images about it. But yes, this partnership with Siga Lila FM, and hopefully other radio stations across the country will come along and want to broadcast this show, which will be very
yeah.
educational. for people.
Let me also interject that we're also broadcasting and streaming live on Radio Kakata 101.7. So basically, we're
wonderful.
covering from Monrovia into Kakata and then into Bon County. So basically, from Monrovia all the way up to Bon County today, into Banga today, we're broadcasting live business talk. So we will be, hopefully, one of the things we'll be doing this in this new level of the show, or this new chapter of business talk. We would do our best to go from to relay county to county. Let's plan on a strategy for that, along with Rufus, to go county by county, so that we can be more inclusive, so that the business,
Yep.
small, medium-sized Liberian businesses in those counties can have a voice to talk about. We can educate them about the ecosystem. What is the ecosystem in your county? How are the concession agreements, the government policies, programs, how are they affecting the private sector, the small, medium-sized, petty Liberian businesses in those counties? Is it positive? Is it negative? Understand and educate them. What is an ecosystem? But one of the things, as I was listening to you just now, Abba, the no one, whether that person is in a position of power, not in a position of power, whatever the case it may be, that person cannot do anything outside of what his mind thinks.
Yeah.
So his mind is the limiting factor. The limiting factor for anyone to do from the action perspective, anything, write a law, pass a law, talk about a law, is limited by his mindset. So when you see all of these different things that are taking place, it can only confirm the level of thinking of those who are actually implementing and executing and driving and pushing these things. So It is so important for us to understand that the ecosystem, that Liberia as a country, as a nation, we as a people, be it in the diaspora, those of us in the diaspora who are seeking, hoping to invest in our country. You know, if the country continues to remain as a quote unquote as an enclave, then no matter how much you pour in, the policy, the program, whatever it is, the government there in that enclave is implementing and executing and making sure it's carried out. We in the diaspora will never be able to get out of there what we put in. So it is so important for us to understand that, Liberia is an ecosystem. The world is, the world economy, global economy, here it is today, the challenges, problems, whatever we want to call it, the war in the Middle East with Iran and Israel and the US has a direct effect on the global economy. So that is a confirmation that the global economy is what? Is an ecosystem, that we are part of this ecosystem. We are a direct part of this ecosystem. You go to the restaurants today in the US, the food costs more. Why? Because the vehicles, the trucks that use diesel to deliver the food, the price of diesel just went up. So the guy who owns the restaurant has to what? Has to put that charge because his cost has gone up. So it confirms the fact that we are living, we are the organisms within this ecosystem. And whatever happens in that ecosystem is going to affect all of us who are the organisms. It may sound funny, but regardless of whether it's funny or not, it is the truth. It's the fact.
It's the truth.
So we now have to, bring a whole new, call it a different level of thinking, call it a different way of thinking, call it a new strategy, call it a rebirth, whatever way you want to, whatever tag, name, label you want to put on that way of thinking. We have to bring a new way of thinking into making sure that we as a country, as a nation that have these tentacles, right? And what are our tentacles? Our diaspora population in the US, in Europe, in Canada, we have a direct effect on that ecosystem, which is Liberia, which is part of the global ecosystem. We're part of the Monterey Union ecosystem. We're part of the ECOWAS ecosystem, and ultimately part of the what? The AU ecosystem. We're part of it. So we need to change, recalibrate, reassert ourselves in this level of thinking. And that's why
if you take the World Cup today, we got a Liberian on the Australian team, we got Liberian on the Canadian team, we got Liberian on the US team, people of Liberian descent. So this world is open, is why we can't stay enclave. We got to expand ourselves and extend ourselves, So that's why we are not participating in the value chain related to all the things we're doing. We are just an extraction point. That's where we need to change, because that enclave economy is exactly what it is. An enclave is a pocket. It's a distinct territory or distinct portion of economic activity that just limited and sits inside our country, but it doesn't spread out or doesn't connect to the rest of our economy. They just extract the raw minerals, they take it out. Yeah, some of the workers are Liberians, but look at the impact some of those things have, especially where the train, you see like 50, 60 cars or trains that carry iron ore, or in the night from bomb mines or from the bombing area, you just see trucks upon trucks coming, impacting the road surface, but we don't see them putting back into the economy. So, and we can look at, like you said, we've talked about the rubber before, and you basically, I should say, has a lot of exposure to the rubber in the Firestone area, because that's where you grew up. Some of that concession agreement there, I don't know how much it has really benefited us as a country. They stay exporting raw latex, they stay exporting and rubber sheet. When will we make one tire? Tell me, if you had to project positively, when will we create and build and produce one tire in Liberia?
when we solve our energy, our electricity challenge, because to run a power, forget about what portion of the tire, what percentage of a tire is natural rubber. Forget about that. Let's forget about it, because a tire today, a tire that you buy on your car today, not more than 25% of that tire is natural rubber. The overwhelming majority is synthetic rubber. So that argument doesn't hold water. But let's forget about that. Where is the energy we need? Where is the energy that is
But,
needed to
but even if you look
run?
at the number, dude, if you say 20%, but look at the volume of cars that are being produced across the world.
I don't disagree. Okay, so if we gather together $80 million to go and build a tire processing plant in Nigeria, let's have an open discussion. Everybody who's listening, please put comments in the chat. We really want this to be an interaction thing. I don't want it to just be Ava and I here talking heads. Please put comments in the chat, YouTube or LinkedIn or on Facebook. Where's the energy?
Right.
You look at
even if you can watch this later. I'm not gonna say. Even if somebody can watch this later, they can still comment and we can go back and read those comments and respond to them.
That's exactly
so feel free to comment next time.
Exactly. Please feel free to comment. So my point is, if you take a strong hard look, right? You talk about concession. Let's expand. Let's peel several more layers off of this. Let's unpack this. Okay. You look at every major investment in Liberia today, be it for in the agriculture sector as it relates to rubber. You look at in the mineral sector as it relates to extraction. What is the common thing for every one of those companies? They have their own power generation source. They have their very own. That was when an investor decides to come to Liberia to make an investment, a major capex investment, the very first thing they put up on the board: electricity, power, energy. How do we solve that? Because it is already a foregone conclusion that nation, that people, that enclave does not have the energy source, and they're not, even if they do have it, it's not reliable. It's not a foundation that we can build our investment. That's fundamental. Okay, so let's relate it. Let's connect it. Let's tie it to the mindset. So the NIC chairman is convincing. He's selling Liberia, which is an enclave, to a group of investors to come and pack their money, put it in briefcases, send them by wire transfer to come and invest in a tire plant. Why? Because Liberia has abundance, small, medium, and large rubber farmers. Come and build your tire plant. We've got all the natural rubber. Agreed. The farmers are there. Agreed. The laborers are there. Agreed. The agronomy schools are there. Agreed. The roads are there. No problem. The trucks for subcontracting to haul the rubber, they're there. Telecommunications, Lone Star, Orion, no problem. The internet, no problem. Starlink connectivity, no problem. Where's the electricity? Where's the energy? So, and to do value addition, whether it's in the agriculture sector or in any other sector of the economy, energy is the foundation. So if the leadership, again, I always continue to say this, it may be something I'm just beating over the head, but again, the success of any ecosystem, be it an economy, is its energy supply, its energy resilience, its energy, power generation capacity, the ability for that country, for that nation, for that people, that leadership to understand this one fundamental thing, invest in that, and everything else will connect and build itself upon it. So that's the reason why Liberia is looked at, considered, and invested in as an enclave, because that one piece isn't there. And we talk about job creation. So the ecosystem cannot succeed. And so you look at China Union, they've got their own little power plant. You look at Jetty, he's solving his. You look at Firestone, where I was born, raised, and grown up, and all my family members. My father went to Cutler University College to do agronomy on a Firestone scholarship from our grandfather who came there first. So the same thing. Firestone built a hydro. The hydro still turns today. You go down the road to LAC. LAC has their own little hydro there processing rubber as well. You go to Bee Mountain, same thing. Everybody has to build their own power plant. You go to Mittal. Mittal build their own power plant up there in HFO. So this is the crux of the matter. This is the cog in the wheel that needs to be addressed. And if the mindset is not there to understand that this ecosystem, we will remain an enclave where we'll be exploited and we would not be taken seriously because we don't understand what an ecosystem is. And, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? It's not Firestone. It's not Bee Mountain. It's not China Union.
So,
it's not, it's not them. It's us. We need to assert ourselves. Go ahead. You were saying it's always puzzling.
Yes. I'm trying to see if I can add Rufus. Rufus, let us know when you come on.
Great Rufus Ibaka himself. Yeah.
It puzzles me that government upon government, and we've been talking about binding constraints and being able to solve these, bringing the Millennium Challenge Corporation into the picture the last time with them, rebuilding the hydro and stuff like that. But it doesn't even meet the need. It doesn't even meet the basic requirement of electricity before we really talk about industrializing. So what do we need to do to really get us to that point where we are energy adequate?
Very good point. Very good point. And again, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier, right? When you put up that graphic, that picture about the ecosystem. People need to understand what is an ecosystem. What is an ecosystem? If you don't understand what an ecosystem is, then you will invest time, effort, and energy and money in building a 20 megawatt solar power plant or photovoltaic power station, which is equivalent to only one turbine on your 4 turbine hydro, and say that's a major achievement and major advancement. No, it is not. It's an indication, a confirmation of failure, of your lack of understanding of how important it is. You're building one solar farm that is equivalent to one turbine in a 4 turbine hydro power plant that when dry season comes, you can only have one hydro working that can provide you 20 megawatts. So at the height of dry season, you only have 20 megawatt capacity. So you're right back to the same shortfall. And everybody runs around, cuts a ribbon and celebrates this. Why? Because the lack of understanding is prevalent in the society and from the bottom all the way up. We have, again, I've always said, we have the Transco CLSG that connects from La Côte d'Ivoire, 5 substations in Liberia, and then into Sierra Leone. We need to build upon that from those substations and build out the distribution. We have Jungle Power in Nimba County that has extended into Bong, and now extended into Grand Bassa and then into Riverside. But where's the CapEx investment to support Jungle Power's expansion? That's a major achievement of Mr. Ford and his leadership. They're great business people. I think they truly understand what needs to be done. But if you talk to him, the CapEx needed to build out the grid is not there. So as a result, for lack of a better way, the way we put it in Liberia is a digging hole and covering hole. Because if you think about it, the grid being expanded in Buchanan, the people who will be connected to that grid can only get power from Transco if LEC, who is the primary national operator, pays its bill to CLSG. So if they don't pay the bill to CLSG will not provide them the power that comes from La Côte d'Ivoire to CIE. If you don't pay that bill, no power is coming. So that means the whole of Grand Bassa and into Riverside will be dark. And these are fundamental things that have to be understood. So how do you grow the economy of Riverside? How do you grow the economy of Grand Bassa that has what? Mittal Steel bringing all the iron ore from Nimba. How do you grow the economy of Bong County that sits in the centermost part of the country? All the roads that go to the southeast and the roads that go to the northwest of the country. The T junction is where? It's in Grand Bad, it's in Bong County. You turn left and you go to Salsa, you turn right and you go to Target. It's in Bong County. So I mean, this is something that needs to be understood by those who are making these decisions. And if they don't understand that the country is an ecosystem, that their failure on the energy side is affecting everybody across every political subdivision. Now, how do you solve it? Very good question. How do you solve it? In business, as you know, there's a very important word. It's called leverage. It's called leverage. So if you think about it, Abba, you and I, we talked about this on one of the shows. And everybody who's listening, they're listening to that show. We talked about what? The send wave money, right? The remittance. The remittance. That's almost $800 million coming in as remittance. $800 million, person to person. USA, Canada, US, USA, Canada, Europe. Coming in through Sendwave, through what? Through Horizon, through MTN, whatever, Western Union, whatever, whatnot. So the question now is, how do we as a people, leverage all of that? How do we leverage that with investing in our energy sector? Because the bulk of that money, if that money reaches people who truly have access to electricity, that money goes where? It goes to pay the electric bill, to cover that investment. So we need people in the energy sector working with the LERC so that we can invest in the energy sector, not only in Monrovia, but in every county. By now, every county should have its own energy power generation station with the advancement of solar technology, which is so available with battery.
That's what I wanted to understand earlier when you're talking about the 20-watt station. Were you saying it was not adequate as a dry season replacement, or do you have an issue with solar energy? Because
no, it's not adequate. It's grossly inadequate.
Right.
The Mount Coffee has 4 turbines. Mount Coffee has 4 turbines. Each turbine is 20 megawatts. The current demand is over 100 megawatts. So we're already 20 megawatts in the hole for Mount Coffee.
So when dry season comes,
that is you round numbers, 100 megawatts. So if your demand is 100 megawatts and the largest power generation station in the entire country from the time of my birth is Mount Coffee, which has been upgraded 4 turbines at 80 megawatts, you're 20 megawatts deficit in the hole. So you go and you build a solar power system, which is a great achievement, but a inadequately great achievement. It's only equivalent to 1 turbine. And solar is most effective when? In the dry season. Okay. And what happens in the dry season? The water levels go low, no rain, and solar power is focused on the sun side, and hydro is focused on the rain side or the water side. So if the water goes low, you can only run adequately 1 turbine at the hydropower plant. And if you only got 4 turbines at 80 megawatts, that means you just achieve a deficit of 60 megawatts. So you run one at 20, you put the solar power plant on, you are back at what? At 40, but you got a 60 megawatt shortfall. Where do you do? So now let's come back to business. All the Liberian businesses connected to this grid are going to be damaged, destroyed, wrecked, shredded, crushed, and left in abject confusion. Why? Because they built everything on an inadequately designed and set up power system. So this is our problem. Businesses will grow in the rainy season and they collapse to nearly nothing in the dry season. Why? Because then they have to now spend all of their money on buying generators and buying fuel and everything else. And this is where Again, the ecosystem approach, and you brought up very, very key thing about needs to be understood by by the leadership from the president to the vice president to the legislature, the Senate, the House, and all of those appointed, especially at the Ministry of Land, of Mines and Energy. All of them need to understand it, and most critically, the folks at LEC, because this ecosystem for the business aspect that's supposed to create your job, refine and add value to our natural resources, be it minerals in the ground or agriculture, can only be done and achieved by an adequate energy source. So there's no way for us to
But
escape.
shouldn't
No
this
way to
be, from our perspective, shouldn't it be an opportunity if Liberians that as an opportunity? Because if we say the need is there, right, way beyond whatever we are currently generating, transmitting, building, can we look at it as a collective investment potential that really sets the foundation of our economy to invest into, some level of electricity production?
Without a doubt. Okay, very good point. This is where the focus needs to be. But again, like you said, in an ecosystem, the one who turns the knob is who? The government. So what role is the government going to play? We have the LERC led by Mr. Floyd Kata, very good person, very good man, hardworking, competent, knowledgeable, doing a great job there along with the rest of the LERC team there, the leadership team. But again, Liberian investors, or be it Liberian investors, be it foreign investors, need to understand this. So the energy sector needs to be something that should be advanced by what? By the National Investment Commission. So the Investment Commission needs to understand how important the energy sector investment has to be, must be, should be for the advancement of this country's economy. And then take the lead role in it and have the LERC be a partner in that, so that people who want to invest in the energy sector, you give them what they need in terms of authorization, concessions, agreements, whatever it is, so that they can then take that and then leverage what they currently have in the backing from government, so that they can build the relationships with energy companies that want to bring solar and want to bring battery energy storage systems into the country. And then you leverage that against those investments within the various counties who can pay the bill. You get my point? You see, right. Because at the end of the day, the what you're leveraging, it's almost like somebody who comes to Liberia and finds bauxite. He comes there, he goes to the Ministry of goes to
Mines,
to Mines and Energies, go to Mines, and he gets an exploration license. He goes to Sino, Pope gets a 500 acre, 1,000 acre place there, sets it up as a concession, pulls a couple of boreholes, pulls the dirt out of the ground, 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet, 500 feet, put them in different bags, geotags them, put them on a plane, sends them off to Europe, gets them analyzed and everything, and gets a plot of that 1,000 acre place, do everything, whatever it needs to do, 3D modeling and everything, and say, you know what, you got, based on what you brought and our analysis, you got, for the sake of argument and discussion, you got 5 million tons of bauxite under this ground. That guy, he has one of the most powerful things in his hands. He's got his survey, his confirmation. He's got his license from the ministry. And nobody in the Liberian government understands how important that of what he has. He takes that and he leverages it with the bankers. The bankers take what he has and say, you know what? If you got all of this stuff and it's all legal, here it is. We will invest in you. The only thing is all your sales of that bauxite comes through us, comes through this bank, so that you pay down the debt. He and the banker become partners on over what? Our natural resources. Now we don't even know that is, and we don't even know what the value is. But yet and still, this guy makes $500 million off of our bauxite. We only get GST And then we ask ourselves, why is all of this happening? Because the understanding and the knowledge is just not there in order for us to understand our ecosystem. We need to learn how to leverage our life. That's where we're challenged. You can even bring what's his name? I've forgotten the guy's name. He's Professor Larry. You know Larry, right? Somebody he's on closing argument, Larry. He's not
Yeah. You talking about Larry? You talking Larry Kennedy?
Larry, yes, that's exactly right. He will tell you the same thing. It's all about leverage. Most of the mining companies that came to Liberia got the mining concession. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the equipment, but they took what they had, which was that prospecting license, went out and did their borehole, went down 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet, brought the dirt out, put it into bags, geotags each location. And you can send it over to different geophysical companies for them to do the analysis for you. And they will tell you what's below them. And then you take that, you leverage that because now you got the mining concessions in your hands. And then all you do, you come to the parliament, you come over to the legislature, the House and the Senate, and you work with the right people there, make them to understand what they don't really understand. And everybody gets a brown envelope of maybe $10,000, even they're celebrating and going to vote for the concession for 25 years. So this guy gets a 25-year concession over our natural resources. And we don't get nothing because we just don't understand how this whole thing is done. You cannot blame the game. You just, you blame yourself because you don't understand the rules. And this is what we need to understand. We need to learn how to operate within the ecosystem. And we need to learn how to leverage our citizens and leverage. I mean, $800 million, that's almost $1 billion. That's almost $1 billion being remitted into that country. How can we not leverage that? We have the Liberian Telecommunications Company, the telco. How can we not be how can we not have a national footprint when there's so many companies wanting to invest in the telecom sector? How can we not? Out of that $800 million, just imagine how much of that money in that ecosystem is being paid for data every day. Lone Star, Orange. I'm not blaming those companies. Those guys have their plans, they have their strategies, and they understand that Liberia's ecosystem and the advancement of that economy depends on what? Telecommunications and data. So they provide the service, be it good, bad, indifferent, poor, but they provide it, people pay for it. Every time you call somebody on WhatsApp, that's data. Send them $50. The first thing they do, they recharge their phone. They go to either Lone Star or Orange. How does the telco as a company, part of this ecosystem, and telecommunications, as you know, is a very vital part of the ecosystem. It's very vital. It's a vital part of the ecosystem. So how does Liberia, how does the government, how does the telco, an integral part of the government for the telecommunications sector, play a role? How do we play a role in that so that we can get our fair share of that $800 million that comes in as remittances? So, your point today about the ecosystem is so critical, it's so important. But again, those who were driving the car, do they understand it? If they don't, they would just keep going in the wrong direction. And this is where we find ourselves today. This is where we find ourselves today.
So it is a challenge. It is something that we have to work with. It is something that we got to keep showing examples that would make those people who drive in the car understand these are the inhibitors. This is what needs to happen, and how they can open the sector, right? Because I'm sure, like Jungle Power, right? They have demonstrated the success of decentralization of the energy, right? If we can find other potential investors, but it just seemed like there's such a barrier to entry. I mean, I would think there could be other independent power producers who will come into the country, and whether it's still in Monrovia, because Monrovia still there's not enough power coming to Monrovia. There's still people who need more power who will pay for it, if there's another power facility, power producer in Monrovia. For them to accept them, but just seeing that the threshold of entry seems to be high. How do we get around that?
Yeah.
How do people recognize that we need to make entry into this a little lower or bring the threshold down so that we can have a little bit more players?
Very, very good point. Very good point. So again, let's go back to the people who are driving the car, the people who are controlling the entry to the gates, right? So the gates of the city, the gates for any investment sector is controlled by key people. If the people who control the gate entry, okay, so let's keep it simple. You bring up a very good point. There's so many companies who want to grow, expand, create more jobs, stimulate the economy, create more wealth. The more people who are hired in these private sector companies, government collects more taxes. You get my point, right? So does the ecosystem understand that economic growth in the private sector or growth in the private sector is going to lessen the burden on government? Do they understand that? That's the first question. Okay. So let's focus on the energy side. And these companies, these private, Futa, Jetty want to do his steel plant there that we will use, which will require a massive amount of electricity to make iron rods from scrap. Okay, you want to make iron rods not from iron ore or steel, but from scrap metal. And then that will support the what? The construction sector that takes a major sector that creates a tremendous amount of jobs in different disciplines, from masonry, electricians, roofers, carpenters. That almost like Lowe's and Home Depot. Okay, very important sector. But where's the energy? Okay, so the bottleneck for Monrovia is who? Is the Liberia Electricity Corporation. That's where the bottleneck is, because they're the grandfather clause. They are the grandfather. They control that sector. But the issue is not a supply of power. Let that be no room for doubt. Don't believe that there's a limitation on how much energy is available. That is not the issue. There's a tremendous amount of energy that sits in La Cote d'Ivoire, in CIE, which is in Cote d'Ivoire, as I've always said on this program, is an oil producer. Go to Google, you find out how many barrels of oil Cote d'Ivoire generates and how much gas. They've taken their gas, blended it along with gas generation and hydro and solar. So they're a major energy exporter. So they've got an abundant amount of power on the supply side that we are already plugged into. You get my point? We are plugged into it.
Yep.
We're already plugged into that power. So and we have 5 substations from Yekepa all the way to Kitma, where the last substation is. So we're, for lack of the extension corridor already runs. Okay. But the question is, the leadership, the management team at LEC, do they understand this ecosystem concept? Because the issue is not the supply side. No. It's not a generation issue. No. It is a management issue. This is where the challenge lies. This is where the challenge lies. And I hope, and I certainly, hope that, your relationship with the current managing director of LEC, Mohammed Sharif, you can bring him on the show one day. Let him explain. Let him tell us what the challenges are, what the issues are. Because the issue is not supply, because we're plugged into, for lack of a better way of putting it, an unlimited power source, which is like Cote d'Ivoire CIE. We have the right transporting medium, which is Transco CLSG, that runs through the country and connects Sierra Leone and Guinea to the same grid. But the management of the financial, you have the expertise in that. The management side, we've got a good commercial banking sector. We got UBA, we've got Echo Bank, you've got LBDI, we've got a good commercial banking sector. Is the banking sector being brought in to help to have a good in-depth discussion as to how we can resolve this energy thing? Because again, energy, as I've always said, energy is a business. It is a business, as you know. It is a business that will stimulate, create thousands of new jobs across this country. The energy business can stimulate the economy. The energy business can create wealth. The energy business can increase disposable income at every level of the Liberian economy. But
Yeah.
again, those who are driving the car, do they understand that all the right ingredients are there? We're plugged into the right power source like Cote d'Ivoire, CIE. We have the transmission infrastructure running through the country with the 5 substations. We have LEC, the National Power Company. But again, it's not personal. It's just a fact. We need to understand how to leverage all of it. If you think about it, how many subscribers that LEC have today, right? And how many subscribers are out there, potential subscribers are out there that will want to that need to connect to LEC. There are thousands of new buildings that are not connected to the grid. Thousands of them. So
And that's the
how
fact.
do you
And
get it? Yeah. How do you? And every building that's not connected to this grid is what? Is lost revenue. It's lost revenue.
completely.
But it's the right thinking. It's the right thinking there to leverage with the bankers and with the management of LEC. Because again, no banker is going to give you his money with him not being part of the process of decision making on his money. So government has to figure out how they can realign the board for those who invest in the company. You follow what I'm saying? I mean, you can't come to me and say, give me
100%.
$10 million to do this. You can't come to me and say, look, Tulip Bank, Echo Bank, LBDI, UBA, we need you guys to invest $20 million each in the energy sector. The guys will say, but what's my guarantee? I need to be on that board of directors. So you're going to have to figure out, Mr. President, because again, your success as president, as leadership of this country, your success is dependent on the energy sector. Now, this statement I'm about to make is very revealing. Whether you believe it, understand it, or whether you know it, it's the truth. The success of every Liberian president moving forward will be dependent upon the energy sector. If the energy sector is inadequate, rest assured your presidency, your projects, your goals, your ambitions, your vision will never work. The energy sector will dictate it. So you're going to
So
have to
we
bring
need
the board.
we need new thinking. We need new thinking to approach
thinking.
how we become
Exactly right.
energy sufficient. And maybe, like you
Yes,
say,
new
we can invite Mohammed on the show to talk about it, to see how we can meet the need, what kind of gap we have right now, and what the plans are. But what does this mean for the ordinary Liberian in terms of job creation, in terms of being able to meet their own needs and all of those? Because we always got to bring things down to the common person. We've been on here for like nearly an hour now, and hopefully we'll be off in 15 minutes. It will be on more than an hour, like an hour, 15 minutes. Hopefully another 15 minutes and we
Hour,
can be
15
out.
minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's narrow down this discussion now to how we can Liberianize this process, right? We've said what the challenges is, especially the fundamental challenge when it comes to electricity. We talked about what you basically explained to us, what the kind of solution you see, and now we need the people. How can a layman be incorporated into this process so that we can feel that we are part of this energy generation, whether it's the generation, the transmission, the distribution? How can a Liberian entrepreneur and a regular Liberian person be a part of this overall process?
It's again, the folks, the Liberian businesses today. I talked to several people this week, in Liberia, in Monrovia, across Monrovia. This is not Liberia, but across Monrovia. And they're all challenged. That in the middle, it's rainy season now, right? It's rainy season. But the power quality on the grid is still poor. Power's out, power's out, power's on, power's out. And so you ask yourself, how can the Liberian businesses thrive? How can more jobs be created in the absence of, these companies, hotels, motels, guest houses, restaurants, small eating locations, drinking spots, cyber cafes, you name the businesses. How can they thrive? How can they be more profitable? How can they grow? How can they expand? How can they add more people? And they're dependent upon electricity, and that which they're plugged into is inadequate. So now they have to go and spend money on diesel fuel or gasoline, which is now over $5, almost $6 a gallon. That cuts into their profitability. So these people are at a great disadvantage. They're at a very, very big disadvantage. So how can they, it affects them. Everybody knows it affects them. But the question now, like you said, how can they respond to it? How can they, what can they do? I mean, it's a hard answer. There's not much they can do besides, complain and talk about it on radio, on Facebook, whatever the case is. But again, the rubber meets the road, and we're at the leadership level, from the president to those who he has appointed at the Ministry of Mines and Energy, under which the Liberian Electricity Corporation is directly reports to, because the Ministry of Mines and Energy is a member of the board of LEC. And the management of LEC, that's where it lies. It lies right there. It lies right there. So, I mean, I don't see what the Liberian business community can do but complain. And they would try to find their own, they will try to find their own solution. But every solution they try to find in the absence of connecting to a reliable grid is going to cost them money. Because don't forget, the war in Iran, closing the Strait of Hormuz, affected the price of oil, which affected the price of refined product, which affected transport, which then ultimately affected the price of gasoline and diesel in Liberia. So if the guy has to now buy diesel or gasoline to run his chop bar, his hotel, his motel, and then he has to deal with putting on air conditioning units and running different things, it's cutting into his profitability. He can't keep as many women in the place as maids to clean the place hotel. He's got three, he's got to let one or two of them go. So that lady has to work even harder now. And then two people are out of jobs. You see, so this, again, like you said, you use the right word, ecosystem. So, we need to, there's a whole new thinking that needs to be brought in, entered into this whole, how do we as a people, as a country, as a nation, how do we move forward? How do we move forward? So that new thinking needs to be introduced from the president to the vice president, the administrative branch, to the legislative branch, and then down to those who the president appoints to serve at his pleasure in the most critical aspect of our growth and our, transformation from the economic side, job creation and wealth building in the country, is the Ministry of Mines and Energy, because it is in that ministry where LEC is a vital component of. And then the LERC, which is the regulatory body of the energy sector, of the electricity sector. So new thinking, we've got the commercial banking sector, but again, the new thinking going to require the president to alter the board of LEC if he wants the bankers to invest. No banker is going to give you his money where he's not playing a role in deciding how his money is going to be spent, because he wants a return on that money.
Well, can our role be defined in contractual terms? Can our role be defined in contractual terms rather than being a board participant or something to that effect?
Well, the thing is this: the path, right? The path, the direction. Okay, for LEC is decided where at the board level. At the board level, it's decided at the board level. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think if you're going to bring in new thinking, right? If you're going to bring in new thinking, and if you're going to, this new thinking is going to help to transcend, to transform, to elevate, to move this country and its people to a whole new level of prosperity, then why are you afraid? If you truly believe in it and you understand it, then bring the right people so that those people can be held accountable for the good decisions that they made.
Or the bad
New
decisions for that
thinking,
matter.
and you hold them accountable. And you hold
Right.
them accountable because again, they all about think about it. If you want somebody to invest 50,000, 75,000 into your pepper bird, your drone thing that you guys are doing, I like it, I love it. I mean, it's good. I want to put in $100,000 plus. I want to provide 10 or 20 more new drones into that project. You're gonna leave that guy out. Do you think that guy being a good businessman gonna say, "Man, look, the board of directors, I want to be there. I don't want to own the company, not your company, but I want to have a decision over how we move this thing to the next level." And you will say yes. And you will say yes, because I mean, if the guy can share the vision with you, then it makes it where you drive and he sits in the passenger seat and helps to navigate where you guys go. And this is the new thinking that needs to be brought into this place. The president and the vice president and the
So
Ministry
yeah,
of
so
Lands, Mines and Energy, where he appoints, and the LEC under which the LEC is attached to.
and folks, you know,
The
that ministry is very critical because right now,
very
and it will be
critical.
for another
Very
show
critical.
because we're coming towards the end. You see the energy side. We haven't even touched on the mining side, the actual mining side,
Yeah,
the mining
that's exactly
concessions that
right.
are out there, the opportunities in mining, the participation of Liberians in mining, the
Mining,
different leveraging options, the
the value
structural
addition. Yes,
financial
yes,
options that we can have when it comes to mining. You know, how we can establish some sovereignty around our mines, how we can demand some value addition, on our soil that can create jobs and opportunities. So those are some of the things we'll continue to get into as we talk about how the economic structure affects the business that operating within that ecosystem. That's why those words are critical.
that's
The
exactly right. Yes,
ecosystem, the
yes.
enclave, the new thinking, the kind of
Yes,
mindset and
yes,
approach we
yes.
have to all of these things. So it's critical. The show will continue to be exciting. We look forward to more publicity, more participation. We thank our folks at Radio Lila, FM 92.1, I believe. Yes, 92.1 in Banga. And we just look forward to more viewership, more people spreading and sharing the information. And also, people who are listening start to take this as a civic responsibility in terms of the kind of transformation we're talking about. Because structural transformation is really national in scope. It will involve a lot of things to take place, and it will require an active and intentional participation of the people
That's
who are
exactly
at the
right.
decision table, the government people. Yes, it will take that. And we also, on the private sector side and on the citizenship side, and even the nonprofit advocacy side, have to all chip in to do our piece of the work to make this thing work. So, I want to thank Akina for really coming back uh, strong and ready to participate and to share his vast knowledge on these things with our business folks and how we can help to develop that sector in our country. So we can have the last words from you, and hopefully we
Yeah,
look forward to a wonderful show
next
next
week.
Saturday.
Well, I also want to recognize and compliment and thank the guys at Radio Kakata 101.7 who relayed the show all across Upper Margibi County. Thank you for doing such a great job because today we were able to, I mean, just think about that, folks. For those of you who are from Liberia, we're able to broadcast all across Montserrat We link into MyGB. We're able to cover Upper MyGB, and then we link into Bong County. So the entire central part of Liberia, and also Love FM also broadcast all the way to Cape Mount. So we were able, and then also the lower MyGB into Unification Town, our school. So we're able to cover a very, very vast area today. So thank you to everyone who listened. And Ava, thank you so much for bringing such a great topic today. I think we need to, every guest that we bring onto the show moving forward, and everyone who's listening, let's always ask them, what is your role? Or do you recognize your critical role in the ecosystem?
Right. And that's a part of a God. That's definitely very important for people to know
Yes.
what the role is,
Yes.
or at least for us to be able to communicate to them to say, what is your task? What should you go do now?
Yeah.
So we can talk to people, we can tell them, say, look, start looking at the energy sector, read about the production of energy in Liberia. How many people out there need energy? How many people don't have it? So that way we collectively will become educated about all these things, and then we are able to make that difference. Because that ask is, what can you do this week, right? On a weekly basis, we'll be bringing the show. We'll do our best to be consistent, right? But you that in that mining sector environment, you are close to that enclave sector. What do you notice? How can you look up the what Meta Steel is doing? What what they call the P Mountain folks are doing? What Channel Union is doing? So it takes all of us to come together to ask ourselves those questions, to challenge us on what we are doing. So next week we'll do a little bit more of that in this and be able to say, this past week, this is what I did. This is what, some people I know did. And next week, this is what I'll be doing. So hopefully we have that. Another piece I also wanted to add, starting off, we'll do some free profiles of businesses. We'll try to promote them. We'll create something with their logo, what they're doing and stuff like that, and be able to share it, play a video or something highlighting their capabilities, their potential, how they're doing and stuff like that. So if you know people in business,
I think that would be great.
If you know people in business who are interested, let us know. Let us engage them. We do, if they already have advertising, otherwise we help them create something, 1 minute, 2 minutes that we can play, take a break and play. Let people understand that we are here to support Liberian businesses and make them vibrant within this ecosystem we are building, while we are also fighting to see how we can change the structure that make it more amenable for Liberians to participate in business. So thank you, and we'll look forward to next week.
I think you did a great job. Today, Alva. I think you set our tone moving forward. The ecosystem. Everybody now, we're gonna when they come on the show, we're gonna hold them to clearly define what their role is. Do you understand what your role is in the ecosystem? What are you doing in the ecosystem?
And there is ecosystem within ecosystem. There are sub-ecosystems.
That's exactly right.
So within the big ecosystem, there's the rubber subsector. Then within that rubber sector, there will even be the Liberian rubber planters, group. So we got to look at the big picture and then the narrow little sections that would deal with everything.
Yes. Because if the person truly does not understand what his role is in the ecosystem, he then becomes very dangerous.
Yes.
Because he's just turning knobs and pushing buttons, and he doesn't even understand the complexities and the problems that he's creating. Yeah. So, but thank you so much to everyone who watched the show today, everyone who listened. Thank you to Radio Kakata. Thank you to Radio Lila. Thank you to Mr. Rufus Divine Connor, who relayed us all Love FM there out of Syncor across the MyGB and the Montserrado area. Thank you to everyone who participated in the show today. Ava, thank you so much for bringing up a great topic today, setting the pace, and let's get ready for a great show next week. If you're a Liberian business, get to Ava, get your information over to him, so maybe we can kind of put your ad on the show throughout the program. So this year, moving forward, we'll kind of let's do commercial breaks. How we'll call it commercial breaks.
Exactly.
We do
Yes.
commercial breaks, and then we have Liberian businesses, run them as shows so people can see what they're doing. And then, it doesn't even have to only be US. It can be both Liberia as well. So
Yeah.
thank you to everyone. Have a great weekend. Have a great weekend. And everyone, love you guys. And thank you so much.
Bye-bye.